Now we're going to talk about range. Here we have a picture that someone else took of some horses. And I believe this is in Virginia. And they're open range, so that means they can roam around and, they're wild horses basically. But what does the word range actually mean? Well, it's the opposite of domain. Domain is output. It's where it goes to. Notice these horses are going wherever they want, so I thought it was kind of a good example for the word range. Okay, now looking at the chart, what do you think the outputs are? You should know by now that it's the f of x values, right? I'm going to give you 3 definitions for range. And by the way, if you haven't watched the domain video yet, make sure you watch that before you watch range. It's impossible to understand range without domain. Range is all the numbers you get of a function out of a function after plugging something in. It's all of the f of x values that come from actual x values, and it's the entire output that comes from the input. It's the opposite concept of domain. So when we go back to that one chart we looked at, okay, we know that this is the domain up here. The range is just all of the y values that come from that. We take those y values, we put them in set notation like we did before, and we separate them by commas. That's it. That's the range of this function. It's very simple. Let's look at example 2. We have x over here, and we have y over here. No, or g of x rather, same thing. All of these values come from a number, an arrow is being drawn to it like on a function map, except for what? Except for 4. 4 is not an actual output because there is no input going to it. So when we go to write the range of this function, we cannot include 4. We can only include -2, 1, 8, 7. Example number 3. We have all these inputs, and they have what? Only one output, right? There's only one output. They all come from an input, but it's only one, and it's 3. So for example 3, the range is just 3. You don't have to include it more than once. If it's listed more than once, you can just write it once. The range is only one number. In this case, it's 3. Example number 4. We have a set of points. What's the known range of this function? Well, it's just the y values or the f of x values, so it's the second part of the points. So it's 3, 7, 1, 9. Undefined is not a y value. That means the point's not on the graph, so we don't include that. And then 1. Notice 1 occurred twice again, so you only include it once when you write out the range. And then we have 9, 7, and 3, and that completes the range of this function. What's the range of this function? Well, just like when we looked at domain, the range here, only one value actually comes from an x value. 11 and 7 do not come from x. So only -4 is part of the range. It comes from -10. So the answer, for example, 6, what is the, it says, okay, I need to fix that. Hold on a second. Okay, I fixed it. What is the known range of this function? The answer is -4. It's the output that comes from an input. No other outputs come from an input, so the only answer we can put is -4. Okay, going back to examples we looked at before, what's the range of this function? What would be the list of results that occur when you eat these foods? The output, when you're talking about inputs and outputs, as far as time goes, the output's always going to happen after the input. Like if you hit a baseball and you hit it over, how far do you hit the ball? Depends on, the swing, right? The swing happens before you hit it. So results always occur before the input. After the input. So in this case, results are going to be your output. Happy, healthy, hearty, gas, stinky breath. So again, outputs always occur after the inputs. And then finally, we had this example before with domain. The range would just be all of the actual outputs. Mouse, the output on the computer is the pointer. Keyboard, you type in characters. Microphone, audio. Power button turns the screen on. Camera takes a picture. So your range would be all the outputs of your keyboard inputs, which would be pointer, characters, audio, screen, and picture. If you have any other questions about range, let me know.